Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I want to talk a little bit about the anxious preoccupied attachment style and dismissive avoidant attachment style relationship. So, if you haven't already heard, we are still doing a sale to support our community right now. The coupon code is with you for 25% off all membership bundles. Memberships give you full access to the entire pre-recorded 30 plus courses in the school, along with close to over 100, maybe 120 webinars at this point. I have to go back and count this stuff, but there's a tremendous amount of content in there. There's an interpersonal live chat channel just for members to communicate, to go through different things. We do 4 live webinars every single week to answer questions. 2 of them are open Q&A, 2 are bonus content topics. And we have every course in there, from how to set boundaries, how to communicate your needs. We have conflict resolution scripts in there for how to actually show up and communicate step by step by step. Our courses for this month are about overcoming and transcending loneliness and proper communication in terms of scripting. And then we have intro attachment style courses, we have advanced attachment style courses, and we also have a whole bunch of courses about subconscious reprogramming, belief reprogramming, a tremendous amount of things that are basically supposed to give huge breakthroughs and results from inside of the school, in a way that, even though I'm trying to give as much content value in the YouTube channel as I possibly can, nobody watches long YouTube videos. Like, statistics show 10 minutes or so, people start to sort of trail off. So, there's only so much we can give in here. And the school provides a platform to really dive into things, really break through, have workbooks, step-by-step guides for transformation to really help you change any area of your life that you're looking to break through. So let's talk about the anxious and dismissive dynamic in the relationship. And I have previous videos about how the dynamic seems to work, but rather than going through what the dynamic is and what it looks like, you can go to a previous video for that. This is really going to be all about how to transform the challenges in this, okay? So I'm going to give you 3 really important high-level tools to work through this dynamic, okay? So one of the first things that we're going to see is that the anxious preoccupied and dismissive avoidant seem to have completely polarized needs from one another. The dismissive avoidant seems to always want space, and the anxious preoccupied always seems to want more time together or less space, right? Now, something that's really valuable to look at is, if we look at things at a surface level, then, space and time seem very conflicting. But if we ask ourselves why we need these things, and we look for the underlying needs we're actually trying to extract through space and time, because if you look at space and time themselves, they're quite neutral. Time could be, if you had to spend all of your time in your life mowing lawns every single day, all day, you probably wouldn't be so valuing your time. But if you get to spend every single, amount of time that you have showing up, doing things that you love, doing things that make you feel fulfilled, rewarded, growing, expanding, connecting, all these different things that make you feel fulfilled, you're going to really value that time. So time itself is neutral. It's what we're using our time for that really makes a big difference. Same thing with space. If you're taking space, right now a lot of people are in, they're getting lots of space. There's lots of isolation going on. And space feels bad for a lot of people, but it's what we're using space for. So at a surface level, we look at the anxious, preoccupied, and dismissive avoidant, and we're like, oh, they're in complete contradiction with each other, but this isn't actually the case. So what the case really is that if you ask why we need what we need, you're going to see that these things are not polarized at all. And at the end of the day, if you keep digging into any needs we have that seem to be in conflict with another human beings, if you keep digging into why, you'll find a place to actually compromise from, because we all have basic human needs to a certain degree that actually match each other. So why do I need more time as the anxious preoccupied, for example? Well, because time for me means connection. It means validation. It means reassurance. It means all the things that if I were anxious preoccupied, I would feel afraid of not having. Why do I need more time? Time as the anxious preoccupied. Why do I need more space as the dismissive avoidant attachment style? Well, because I need that time to self-soothe. I need that time to feel independent, autonomous, to feel safe, to feel like I'm in control of my environment. And so these are the things that we can compromise from. Hey, can you please respect that I need to self-soothe? Can you respect that I need to recharge in my time alone? Can you respect that it's really valuable for me to try to have some control in my environment? And if you can see and hear and understand that and show up to respect that, I can give you more quality time, more affirmation, more validation, more reassurance of where we are at. And the breaking down of those original needs is one of the most important first things we can do to transform this dynamic. And when you see it that way, those things are not in conflict whatsoever. Now, what needs to take place for this to really happen, because it's one thing for me to say that, it's another thing for two people to have that conversation, is there needs to be a conversation where two people sit down, and I recommend this for any relationship, irrespective of your attachment style. Two people need to sit down and put their needs out on the table and say, this is what I need in a relationship, this is what I would hope or expect. And when we have expectations of people, but then we communicate them, we turn them into desires. We turn this into open, honest conversation. And that's a really healthy, effective thing. When we're just projecting our expectations onto people and we don't communicate, then we try to put people in a box and we stop seeing them, and we can kind of imprison other people through those expectations, right? We put them in a story, a framework. And this is often what these two individuals do in a relationship together. And this is an important habit to break. So what is required to actually get both parties' needs met is for two people to sit down and have a conversation that says, hey, our needs are not in conflict after all. What I'm really seeking through time is quality time, depth of connection. And I can tell you this right now because I've seen this with couple after couple in my practice for years. If we have two people and we give them 10 hours a week together, but like that 10 hours a week, they're kind of watching television, they're kind of on their phones, they're like halfway talking, they're not fully present with each other. That 10 hours a week will not mean nearly as much as 2 hours a week of sitting down, being fully present, quality time, phones away, electronics off, and having really deep, vulnerable conversation, or doing something both people really love together, or really affirming each other, using words of affirmation, cooking dinner for each other, and then being really present. The presence and the quality of the time has a much greater impact than the quantity of the time, which is another reason space versus time between anxious, preoccupied, and dismissive avoidant does not have to be in conflict. And so if we can have quality time with those things that the anxious, preoccupied needs happening more often, and then we can have the anxious, preoccupied communicate that and break that down and say what they need to the dismissive avoidant and really paint the picture of what that looks like and explain, because this really helps dismissive avoidants to be empowered, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Then the dismissive avoidant, and if the anxious, can then say, I'm going to give you more space and time to yourself if you can give this more to me when we have our time together in our interpersonal interactions. And this is a really, really, I would say this is a necessity, not even a really important first step. I would say this is actually a necessity in order for this relationship to function. Both people have to be able to have this conversation and bring these things to the table. So this brings me to number 2. And this is the importance of the anxious, preoccupied painting the picture for what needs look like. The huge miscommunication that happens is that anxious, preoccupied individuals often will communicate a need, but often dismissive avoidants won't understand exactly what they mean by it. So an anxious might say, I need more validation. And a dismissive avoidant might be like, okay, so they want me to, do dinner, cook dinner more often, or pay for things more often, or bring them gifts. Like, people have a different reasoning or different understanding for what validation means. And so if we don't have both parties, and this is especially important for the dismissive avoidant, because this is what happens usually for the dismissive avoidant when they go through this experience, they go, wow, they want more validation. And then when I try, it's not received, so why am I bothering? Or they go, I don't feel good about this whole validation thing. I'm probably going to do it wrong. And when they don't feel really empowered because things are really spelled out and laid out and clear, they often make it mean that something's wrong with them. And then they shut down and retract and pull away and feel shame. And then what often happens as a result is then the anxious goes, oh my gosh, you didn't even try. And they get more triggered. And then we just get into this vicious cycle. So that vicious cycle can completely stop the moment an anxious, preoccupied individual is willing and able to say, this is what I need, this is what it looks like, okay? And then the third thing that's super important is for the dismissive avoidant to, it's really like both pieces here. The dismissive avoidant also has to be able to meet that need for number 2, by the way, has to make an effort and put an effort in there. But I've found in the vast majority of cases that for number 2, when it comes to the anxious, preoccupied painting that need, when it's really painted and when it's positively reinforced and appreciated, when the dismissive avoidant meets it, often the dynamic shifts completely. Like there's a very dramatic change because the dismissive avoidant feels empowered and like they can do it, and they feel more confident in the relationship, and the anxious feels more settled because they're getting their needs met and they feel more trusting, and that like vicious cycle of dismissing and coming towards kind of like calms down a little bit, which is really beautiful. So the third thing that's really important here is that the anxious preoccupied needs to learn to self-soothe, and the dismissive avoidant needs to learn to be vulnerable. And this is the third like major focus in here, which comes with practice, okay? And this is what you guys are kind of here to teach each other, in my opinion. You know, if there's an anxious and there's a dismissive, the anxious is not self-soothing enough, and the dismissive is hyper self-soothing. And you know what is required for healing as human beings is balance, and the ability to like tap into all different parts of ourselves at different times. The part that can be dependent and like not codependent, but a little dependent and a little independent, right? And having that balance leads to healthy interdependence. And so we're really trying to find that balance, and both individuals tend to be polarized. So dismissive avoidants need to learn to open up, share, communicate, soothe through others, trust others with their feelings, and anxious preoccupied need to learn to practice self-soothing. And I have previous videos on that for the anxious and for the dismissive about those big topics. So tune into those if you want to learn more about that and the how and some strategies to support you in doing that. So we have a tremendous amount of content in the school that talks about, like in the 6 stages of relationships, how to do these things and how to reprogram, and step-by-step exercises and workbooks and all these different things. But go check out those other videos. I'll put them in the description box below as well. And I hope this is helpful. This is such important information for people who are getting a little stuck in these dynamics. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot of value out of this channel. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next video.